Welcome to Secrets Out Idaho. Each week, we let you in on the secrets of Southern Idaho and speak to the people who make it such a unique, hidden gem. I'm your host, Connie Stouffer. On today's episode, we'll be hearing from local entrepreneur Shane Cook on what it was like to open his first business and experience a downtown revitalization. We'll also hear what it's been like to open a new brewery in Twin Falls and hear about some of the lessons he's learned along the way. Shane Cook, thank you for joining us on Secrets Out Idaho. I'm really excited to interview you and learn more about your businesses in Twin Falls. So you opened the Twin Falls Sandwich Company in 2012 and located it in the downtown. What made you decide to locate it there, and tell us more about the Twin Falls Sandwich Company?
Well, it's kind of funny. When I opened the Twin Falls Sandwich Company, I didn't think I was going to be in the restaurant industry anymore. I've been doing it for 20 some years, and I thought I was done with the long hours and working holidays and all that stuff. And a good friend of mine, JJ Staggy's like, hey, there's this place downtown. I think you might be interested in for a restaurant. And I was like, I don't know, downtown, there's nobody down there. And, you know, at the time it was completely dead down there. I mean, they hadn't redone the streets. There was more than 50% vacancy down there. I mean, there was nothing down there. I went down, I checked it out, and you know, I walked into the building, and it had pink carpet, and it had like stucco interior walls and 9-foot drop ceilings with fluorescent lights, and it was just hideous. But a light went on, and I saw that there was a lot that we could do with this building. And you know, behind all the drywall and the crap that was on the walls, there's beautiful brick walls, and we took out the 9-foot ceilings. Now we have tall 16-foot ceilings, and just brought it back to its bones, basically. And the reason I went downtown originally is I moved up here from Salt Lake, and I lived in the 9th and 9th area. And when we moved down there, it was really, you know, kind of beat up and not the best place to live. But while we lived there, it went through a revitalization. And now it's a cool place to live, and you know, all the businesses down there have revamped themselves. You know, they've gotten rid of their 70s facades and got rid of all that stuff that, you know, people covered up, you know, all that beautiful history. And I saw the same thing happening down here. And you know, thank goodness, you know, 6 years later, it's definitely happening. So
that's so exciting to hear. And I know sometimes people can see the diamonds in the rough, and I think that's definitely what you saw. And downtown Twin Falls has gone through that, a bit of a revitalization. I think it's still going through that. Did you think that was going to happen? You know, did it take longer than you thought? Or kind of tell me about that process of being that person downtown when it was dead, investing in downtown, and now we're starting to see a lot more vibrancy down there.
Yeah, so, you know, originally I had no idea what was going to happen. When we opened up, it was myself, a good friend of mine, Joe, working in the kitchen, and another good friend, her name is Elma. It was just the three of us because seriously, there was no one downtown. So that first day, it was the three of us. And that first day, there was a line out the door.
That's amazing.
And so yeah, it was amazing for us, but our poor customers, because I mean, there's only 3 people. We could only do so much. So we made food as fast as we could. About halfway through the second day, we ran out of food. We ran out of prep food. I mean, we ran out of everything. So, you know, we had to shut down early that day. I called some more friends. They came and helped me out. So until we had a full crew. But yeah, and so when I first opened, I didn't see it growing as fast as it has. You know, I figured, you know, after that initial, you know, 6 months or so, I figured, you know, maybe 5 years, 10 years, things would start to pick up. But and yeah, I guess we are at 6 years, but it's every year we grow quite a bit, and it's a good thing.
That's so exciting. I moved back to Idaho about 1.5 years ago to Twin Falls for the first time. And when I got here, I asked, you know, new people that I'd meet, like, where should I go eat? And Twin Falls Sandwich Company was always one of the places on the list that people recommended. And it's definitely one of those special places. And I asked some people who recently moved here where they like to eat, and they're like, Twin Falls Sandwich Company was their first one they mentioned. And I think it's one of those special places, not only in downtown, but in our community. What do you think makes it that special place that people just like to go to and hang out, and what kind of, it's made it kind of a heart of the downtown, I think?
You know, when we moved here, it was 11 years ago, you know, probably even when you left, I mean, the only places to eat were Applebee's, Chili's, you know, the chain restaurants. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, it's all prepackaged, you know, cookie cutter stuff. What we do at the sandwich company, we roast our own meats. Everything's fresh vegetables. We don't have any frozen products. We bring in, fresh produce, fresh bread 3 times a week, and it makes a big difference. There's love put in the food. People put time and effort into everything we make. It's not just put there by some machine. So I think that makes a big difference. Since we've opened, other people have done very similar things. Guppy's opened up down there, and he makes fresh food. And Yellow Brick Cafe, they make fresh, healthy food. And it's definitely changing, the culture down there. It's wonderful.
So you've got this successful business. It's growing faster than you thought it would. And now you're like, let's open a second business. So what spurred that on to open Koto Brewing?
That's been in the works for a long time. I've always wanted to do a brewery. I can't do everything. I can't be the brewer. I can't, run a restaurant. There's a lot of things involved. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I started talking with, my best friend Pierre, who actually brews as well, and he's a much better brewer than I am, about doing this. So, we bought a pilot system and we made some beers, and they were fantastic. And we continued to work on this over the last 4 years as we're trying to find a place to open. And, all the right things just have to fall into place. And eventually they finally did it. The building we were trying to get into, we tried to lease for like a year, but we couldn't make it work out because it took a real renovation. We're into that building quite a bit of money, and there's really no way that I could put that much money into a building that I'm leasing. It just wouldn't be worth it. So, the people, Shane and Michelle Carpenter, own the building. They were going to lease it to us. Actually, were very generous and sold me the building, which, they just bought, and they'd planned on, being a partner in this. But, they helped me out a lot. So
I'm sure as you're renovating an old building and starting a business, there's a lot of things to unwrap and probably surprises that came along the way. So were there things that you learned after opening the sandwich company that helped you as you prepared for this, or was it a whole new ball of wax starting a brewery?
I thought after the sandwich company, I knew everything, and we just bust through this. We'd be open in 3 or 4 months after the construction started. And, it was a lot bigger project than I'd anticipated. We ended up having to remove all the electrical, all the plumbing. There was a brick chimney in the back. There was just a lot of things that we thought could make work that really just needed to be replaced. And if we were going to do it, now was the time. So, so yes and no. It definitely helped going through that process once, but this was just a lot larger project than the sandwich company.
So I know the Twin Falls Sandwich Company has a lot of like Twin Falls flair in both like the names of your sandwiches and things like that. Are people going to see a similar Twin Falls flair in the Koto Brewing, or is it going to have kind of a different atmosphere and feel to it?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be similar. We're going to use main local products as we do now, hopefully even more. As far as the names of our beers, that's really tough because trademarking comes into place and so many things have already been taken. You kind of got to get creative, and there'll definitely be interesting names on things. So yeah.
So we'll just have to come and check it out.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So now that you've opened one business, you're getting ready to open a second one. Why, if there's someone that's an aspiring entrepreneur and they're wanting to move to a community, why would someone want to come to Twin Falls and open a business?
So I lived in Salt Lake and worked in the restaurant industry, like I said, for like 20 years down there. And I would never open my own place down there. I moved up here about 11 years ago, and the community support here is amazing. They support local things. Everybody works hand in hand. I get products from Falls Brand. I see the people from Falls Brand come in. It's just a real community-oriented town. So.
And then just as an entrepreneur in general, what would you recommend, if you had kind of top tips for people to think about before they embarked on opening a business, particularly, I guess, probably in food service or restaurant? Like if you were to say, you need to make sure that you've thought these things through. Because I think people, as you're starting a business, they feel some anxiety about it, and they want to make sure that they can learn maybe from somebody who's done it themselves.
Yeah, well, especially in restaurants, you've got to be passionate about what you do. And it helps a lot to have experience. A lot of people think, it'd be fun to open a restaurant. It's a lot of hard work, and I don't think most people realize what it takes. everything I do, I'm passionate about, whether it's choosing the beers or the meats we have or the breads. It makes a big difference. So just make sure that whatever business you choose to open, that it's something you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about passionate about, what is your favorite things about living in the Twin Falls area?
The size of the town, we complain now because we have to drive across town and it takes like 12 minutes. And we have pretty much everything you need here. I mean, as far as, sporting goods or shopping, stuff like that, it has everything, but it's all right here. It's a little bit smaller version of everything. It's whenever we go to the city, we almost get overwhelmed anymore. It's a little bit slower pace of life, but that's what we love.
Mm-hmm. I used to live down in the Salt Lake area too, in Bountiful, and so I dealt with traffic all the time. And then every time I go down there, I'm like, how do people live like this? Because I get used to the nice pace that's here, and I think if you've been here for a long time, you kind of forget. And then you go across town, and you're like, why is it taking me 2 extra minutes to get across town?
Yeah.
So, top things for people to do if they're visiting here or they've just moved here. What would you send them out to go do?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what you like to do. I love to kayak, so there's actually great accessibility right down at Centennial Park. They rent kayaks all summer long. They make it really easy for you. You can just drive down there and hop in a kayak from AWOL. I like to go down there early in the morning before people get there. I get on my kayak about 6 or 7 in the morning and watch the sun come up in the canyon. It's really a nice, peaceful time. So it's a good way to start the day. There's a lot of fly fishing around here. It's something I've tried to get into. It's not really my deal, but a lot of people love to do that, and we have world-class fly fishing within an hour of here. So
I think that's one thing that people talk about, is that they can either get up in the morning and go kayaking or mountain biking and then still be in work, or they can get off of work and go do a quick paddle down the river and then still be home for dinner in a reasonable time. And that's not something you get a lot of places. So
absolutely, yeah, there's a lot of great outdoor activities here.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I meant to ask you before about Koto Brewing is I heard that there is some neat touches inside as far as the way you've decorated like tables and things like that have repurposed things from different parts of the community. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, even in the sandwich company, we repurposed as much of the stuff as we could. Not only just, rarely did we save money. Usually it ended up costing us more, but it definitely helps out on the environment. So all of our tables are made from Twin Falls High School gym floor. There's a large bar around all of our brewing equipment. It came from the Ritz Bowling Alley in Salt Lake. It's a bowling alley I used to bowl at. They tore it down 4 years ago. So I've been collecting things knowing that someday I was going to do something big like this. We have benches in there that came out of beams that we had to replace. Same thing with our light fixture. Things that we had to tear down, we repurposed. There's brick walls in the basement that we made out of the brick from the chimney we had to tear down. So we repurposed as much stuff as we could. Yeah.
I think even the name of the brewery was kind of an ode to the history of the building, right?
Yeah. So Koto Brewery was named after the Koto building, which we're in, which was built by the Koto family in 1920, and it was a Japanese American. Well, they were actually a Japanese family. They weren't allowed to own property, so they had to put the building in their son Tom's name, who was born here. But
that's amazing to be able to keep that historic connection to your building as downtown Twin Falls is going through a revitalization and looking towards the future. What do you see on the horizon for the downtown area?
It's hard to say what's on the horizon, but what I'm pushing for is like a Whole Foods grocer down there. A little bit more retail and some more nightlife, whether it's bars or just, restaurants that stay open a little bit later,
mm-hmm.
Things like that. So we have more of a active downtown past, 7 o'clock at night. So,
well, I think that'll help. With the brewery, I think a lot of times, so breweries are typically open a little bit later, and usually once there's one person staying open a little later, other stores are like, well, maybe I'll stay open a little later and catch that crowd that's coming out. And so that's usually catalyst, and it sounds like you were one of those catalysts 6 years ago helping get people downtown. So
yeah, so hopefully we just keep building on that. We're gonna have live music on the weekends and occasionally during the week as well. We'll have comedians, we'll have live acts down there all week long.
Oh, so that's awesome. And what kind of food should people expect at the brewery?
It's pub style food, so we'll have sandwiches, burgers, salads, things like that all day and night. In the evening we'll actually have a dinner menu, which will have all natural grass-fed steaks. We're going to have fresh seafood. smoked ribs, things like that. Ooh. So yeah, we'll have a full dinner menu as well.
That sounds delicious. That sounds awesome. So this will air a little bit after you guys open. But so for the people who maybe haven't had a chance to visit yet, what should they expect?
Hopefully they come down not just for the beers. They're going to get treated amazing. I have an amazing staff already lined up. Some super friendly people up front and some amazing talent in the kitchen. I'm really impressed with what we were able to gather here. I was a little bit worried about that when we started the hiring process, but we actually have a great staff. So, expect to be treated great, have amazing food, and most importantly, our beers. We're hopheads. We love hoppy beers, IPAs, things like that. But we're also going to make blonde ales. We're going to make porters. We'll make red ales. We'll make a little bit of something for everybody. So
that's so exciting. So tell me a little bit more. So what eventually brought you to Twin Falls from Salt Lake City?
So the same guy that talked me into opening the sandwich company, JJ Staggy, we used to work together down in Salt Lake at Einstein Bagels. And he tried talking me into coming up here for like a year. And I was like, I'm not going to Twin Falls, that crap hole we stop at on the way to Sun Valley. No way. But eventually, one weekend I came up here. I spent it with he and his family. And, of course, I know him and he's going to be great to me. But everybody in town, you go to the gas station, everybody's so friendly. The grocery store, people were so nice. And it goes back to like having everything in a smaller town that was just really attractive. And I really didn't think I'd ever leave Salt Lake. But after that one weekend here, I felt like this was home. That's
amazing. I've heard a couple stories like that where people came and they just didn't realize, and they were sold kind of instantly, either driving across a bridge and seeing the canyon or just meeting people in town and realizing it was kind of a special place. So when you came up here, did you immediately start working in restaurants, in food service again, or did you do something different when you got up here?
Yeah, so there was a bagel shop that opened up called Zulu Bagels. It was on Washington Street. I moved up here to help Todd and Kim Ostrom open that. And after about a year, I knew that wasn't really my fit. It just wasn't something I was really into. And I knew Cafe Rio was coming into town and something I was familiar with from Salt Lake. So I went back to work for a corporation, which I said I'd never do just because it's ridiculous hours. The expectations are just unreal. I thought we were doing great. Whatever you do, it's never enough. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's what brought me up here was Zulu Bagels and my buddy JJ.
So does JJ have any other plans in the works that he's trying to talk you into?
I hope not. Yeah, I got my hands full now, so.
Yeah, I imagine so. So what, other than the friendliness of the people that you met here, was there anything else that surprised you about Twin Falls when you got here from Salt Lake?
Like I mentioned earlier, just going down to Centennial, it's 5 minutes from my house. I can be in the canyon, which in Salt Lake, I miss the mountains. I'm not going to lie. I can get there in an hour from here, but when I lived in Salt Lake, it was 10 minutes maybe, mm-hmm. and I'd be on a canyon trail. But the Snake River, it's almost majestic down there. So even though there's 50,000 people right above you, when you're down there, you're just off on your own.
That was one thing. I lived in Pocatello for for a while, and it's only 2 hours away. But I never went down into the canyon. I didn't stop in Twin Falls. I would just drive past on my way to Boise or wherever. And then when I moved here for my job, I was just like, why did I not come here? It's so beautiful, and the canyon's amazing. And I think it's one of those secrets that a lot of people in Idaho don't even realize how amazing it is. They just drive by. So it's our little oasis here.
Yeah, and that reminds me. There's actually another great little canyon which isn't visited nearly as much, but Rock Creek Canyon is, it's going through a revitalization as well down there, and they're putting in new paths, and my wife's part of a running group that runs down there all the time. That's actually how I even discovered it, but it's a great place just to go get away right here in town.
That's a great tip. I have not been there, so I'm gonna have to check that out myself. So so she likes to run down there. Is there anything else that she's really into? Does she like to kayak or?
No, she spends a lot of time running. So, between running and taking care of me and our son, he's in a lot of sports. He's in basketball and he plays a lot of soccer. So she keeps pretty busy doing that stuff.
Yeah, how old's your son?
He's 14.
14?
Yeah.
And does he so he would have been pretty little when he moved, so he probably doesn't remember too much about Salt Lake, but does he enjoy sports in school here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And he doesn't know any different because, he did move here when he was 3. But I went to school in Salt Lake, and our graduating, well, the number of kids that went to our school, it was over 2,000 people. I mean, it was a huge school. It was in Davis County,
Mm-hmm.
Just north of Bountiful in Kaysville. And I mean, I couldn't imagine Eli having to go through that. I mean, it's nice knowing everybody, even though there are two schools here. I mean, with the sports, I mean, he knows everybody at Twin Falls High School. He goes to Canyon Ridge, but I mean, they all get along, and yeah, it's good.
That's a nice thing to have in a community. We were just talking to someone the other day that just moved to the area, and what he liked was that it was like a safe, nice place to raise a family. And I think that's something that maybe people don't think as much about here, because they think about the canyon or the recreation or things like that. But the safe, nice place to raise a family is also one of the nice selling points that you realize once you get here. Oh yeah, for sure. And the cost of living, I mean, it makes it, I mean, we live much better here than we did in Salt Lake. It's nice. That's awesome. So what's some of he's into a lot of sports, but are there any other things that he likes to do? Of course, video games, and he's starting to discover girls too, which is kind of scary, but yeah. That's that age. Yeah, just it was like 2 weeks ago. I usually give him a ride home from school. I gave him a call, and he's like, "Oh, I'll walk home today." And it was cold, and I was like, "Are you sure? What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, it's okay, Dad. I'll walk." So I'm driving home, and I see him walking with this girl, and so yeah, he walks home every day with this girl now. So it's good for me, but yeah. Well, it's one of those things that it's a community where you can let your kids walk home. Like there's a lot of places where you're like, no, I'm gonna give you a ride. Like it's not a safe place to walk, but you can walk pretty much anywhere here and know that they're gonna be safe and get home okay. Yep. So tell me anything else that I haven't asked you about Twin Falls Sandwich Company or Kodo Brewing or just life in Twin Falls that you want to share with the folks that are listening. Super excited about our new business. The old business is doing great, but is it kind of nice that they're not too far from each other, so you can walk from one to the other, or is that like a lot because they're right next to each other? It's a good and bad thing. It's definitely nice because I can just walk back and forth from one to the other. But I know once Kodo opens, I'm gonna eat some of the business from the sandwich company. So that's the only probably negative. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully, I think you'll get like lots of people down there. Oh, for sure. Every time something new's opened downtown, the sandwich company's gotten a little bit busier. People are like, "Oh, are you worried about the competition?" It's like, it's not competition. When there's more things for people to do and more things for them to experience, it's going to bring more traffic down for everybody. That's when I'm glad that's been the case, because that's something that I try to tell people, particularly in small communities. They're like, "Oh, I don't want another restaurant to open up next to my restaurant," but it just brings more people and more vibrancy and more opportunity, I think, for people. So I'm glad that that's been the case downtown, and businesses are thriving down there with all the new activity. Oh yeah, for sure. I think Slice was the first new restaurant that opened down there after we opened. And I was terrified. I was like, oh man, it's going to be tough. And the first week or so, I did see a ton of people going into Slice that were coming to the sandwich company. I was like, oh man, what's going on? But after the newness wore off, I mean, it just brought more people down. Our sales continue to grow. So it's good for everybody. That's so exciting. That's wonderful to hear. Shane, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us all about Kodo Brewing and the Twin Falls Sandwich Company, and for joining us here on Secrets Out Idaho. We really can't wait to come grab a pint at Kodo Brewing, and really want to thank you for all that you're doing to revitalize downtown. Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the time. Thanks for listening to Secrets Out Idaho. You can follow Southern Idaho Economic Development on social media or visit southernidaho.org to learn more. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you can be the first to hear more Secrets Out Idaho. Until next time.